There's a new game in town, electromobility. Player 1, choose your weapon. Battery electric vehicle. Player 2, choose your weapon. Hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicle.
We have two of Hyundai's ever-increasing range of EVs. Jez, which one have you got?
Well, I have the new Ioniq 5, which sits on a new dedicated battery electric vehicle architecture. It's priced from just under $72,000. It's got a range of up to 451 kilometers, and it's got 800-volt charging capability, which makes it one of the fastest EV chargers around.
And what does that mean? How long does it take to charge?
Well, still 17 minutes, thereabouts.
That's not bad for an electric car. And how many of those chargers are there?
Well, it's an ultra-fast, rapid charger thingy, 350 kilowatts. Yeah, there's not many of those around.
Right, okay. So this is the Hyundai Nexo hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicle. I can fill this in 4 minutes and have a 660 kilometre range.
Okay, pretty impressive, but how many hydrogen refueling stations are there around?
Not that many.
Sorry, what was that?
Not that many.
Okay, yeah, so infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, EV infrastructure generally is not great, but hydrogen infrastructure, it's nowhere.
So, lots of questions about hydrogen. While we fuel this bad boy up to go for a drive, I've got just the man to answer those questions. Before we get into that though, this video, it's going to be like all the other videos we do. We're going to talk about how much it costs, what you get, what it's like to drive, what's inside, all the usual stuff, so by the end you'll know exactly what you need to know about both of these cars. Also, don't forget, hit subscribe. If you like it, hit like, and of course if you hit the bell button, as soon as we put a new video up, you're going to find out all about it.
The Hyundai Nexo is the Korean company's second generation hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. You can't really buy one, and to find out why, be sure to read the written review of this comparison at the link in the description. But even if you could, it's a lot. But you do get 19-inch alloys, LED headlights, around view cameras, remote parking assist, fake leather interior, panoramic glass sunroof, 8-speaker Krell branded stereo system, powered tailgate, dual zone climate control, heated and ventilated electrically operated front seats, and heated rear seats. The battery takes up all the space under the boot floor, so you get a tyre repair kit instead.
And to answer those questions, and they're going to be tough questions, I've got Scott Naga. He's from Hyundai. He's the Senior Manager of Future Mobility, and we're going to talk about that, the Nexo, and what hydrogen means for us in the future. But right now, while it's filling, we've got some quick fire questions. Scott, hello.
G'day, good to see you.
And you? Right, range.
666 kilometres.
How long does it take to fill to full?
About 3 minutes to full.
How many stations are there in Australia at the moment?
There's 4 operational in Australia, and there's a couple more coming on the way that are in construction now.
And are they in Sydney or are they?
No, they're scattered. One in Brisbane, one in Western Australia, another one going into Melbourne, and we've got stations actually getting upgraded here and some other places.
How many of these are in the country now in use?
With our cars, I think there's about 26 at the moment in the country. There's more on the way, and with our competitor Toyota, they've got a range of cars here in previous generation Mirai and also the current generation 2 Mirai. Plus we've got an iX35 across the road in storage, the original first car in Australia is still here.
I've been in one of those. At the moment, it's only governments really that can buy one of these things, isn't it?
Yeah, we're doing a lease program with governments, mainly because there's not a whole lot of hydrogen stations around. The hydrogen stations that are going in have limited capacity and there's no redundancy. So if a station's down for service, for maintenance, for a failure, where does that customer go? So in most cases, the cars we're leasing are on stations that are owned and operated by governments anyway. So it's a way of just building up the awareness, building up the consideration, but also building up the infrastructure. So when there's more stations in the same city, then we'll look at moving to customers as well.
And it's full. So in the same time, we would have got around about 5 Ks out of an Ioniq. That now has 666 Ks.
The Ioniq 5 may have 2 prices, but it comes in one equipment specification for the moment, the Launch Edition. Starting at $71,900 for the rear-wheel drive and rising to $75,900 for the faster and more powerful all-wheel drive, it's a well-spec'd motor vehicle. You get 20-inch wheels, LED headlights, flush-fitting door handles, keyless entry and start, leather interior, dual-screen Mercedes MBUX-style dash and media system, huge glass sunroof, powered and heated front seats, heated steering wheel, 8-speaker Bose-branded stereo and dual-zone climate control.
We have done a full video on the Ioniq 5, and if you want to watch that, you can click on a link somewhere above. But let's talk about both these EVs in terms of design, because I think the Ioniq 5 looks absolutely fantastic.
I think so too. It's honestly, when I first saw it, I thought this is one of my favourite cars of all time from a design perspective. Obviously, I hadn't driven it. I just love the look of it, and it really does scream electric vehicle, doesn't it? I mean, it's got the, the headlights, the pixelation all through it. Full-on Minecraft. I mean, very, very electronic.
Yeah, or in terms of pixelated LED lighting front and rear, kind of sort of 1970s Atari maybe.
Yes.
But look, look at this metalwork. It's just so sharp. You got, it's metal origami.
Yep.
You've got creases, folds everywhere. But the thing about the Ioniq 5 that's so surprising, perhaps, is the size of it. Because in pictures, it looks like it's a kind of little sort of hatchback.
Yeah.
But in the metal, I mean, it's massive.
It's the size of a Tucson, which is, not a small car. But also, I think part of the reason it looks small is the wheelbase is actually really long. Like it's. I mean, we were talking about this before. It's as long as the Palisade.
Yeah,
That's
an eight-seater SUV. It's crazy.
In a 5-seater. So we're going to show you what that's like inside in a minute. But yeah, I think you can safely say this car looks like what it is: a really advanced, future, forward-looking car.
Well, the Nexo looks happier with its LED and headlights. The Ioniq 5 is a bit frowny, so that's something in its favour.
Look, I think if this had come out 2 years ago, we would have been a bit kind of, whoa, but now we've got the new Hyundai Tucson, which has got such a big personality.
Aggressive styling language.
Yeah, this is a bit kind of, well, you don't really see what this is about, do you? Like, whereas the Ioniq is very much screaming what it is, this has an equally advanced drivetrain underneath it, but
it just looks like a conventional mid-sized
SUV.
Look, inoffensive, but just a bit boring.
Yeah, and it's kind of a shame because this is actually a second generation fuel cell car. The first one was the iX35, and it's been built from the ground up to be a fuel cell car. So I guess I wanted a bit more Spock.
Yeah, well, I think we need to get inside them, see what the interiors are like, and drive them and see if this maybe drives better than it looks.
Let's find out.
Right, Pete, welcome to the Ioniq 5.
Thank you. I like it.
What do you think?
I really like this interior. One of the things I'm really keen on in this car is, like the outside, it's owning the idea that it's an electric car on the inside, but without being a jerk about it. Like, the Teslas are a jerk about it. Like,
there's a lot of minimalism going on here. It's just that it's a dashboard and it's a big tablet in the middle. I mean, I like it, but this is a slightly more conventional approach.
Well, this is designed for this car, right? Like, the Tesla is like they've built a shell and they've said to the interior guys, just fill it. So they just put stuff in it. And like, whereas this feels like a car, like this feels like the kind of thing we're used to, but it's got these big storage trays.
And this can slide.
It slides. The sliding, the whole thing.
140 millimetres of travel.
The whole
thing
that slides, and I love that. As we discovered, you can get a whole 13-inch laptop or a big iPad into the glove box, so there's plenty of storage. I didn't think the two-tone would work, but it looks great. And I love the little fabric, bits and pieces.
Well, you see that bit there, that little trim there, that's called paperette.
Paperette.
It's recycled material.
And it's kind of full of those little touches. Yeah, it's not kind of full on like the i3 was, with that really nice slab of wood.
Which is one of the best BMW interiors ever.
Indeed.
I would suggest.
I mean, this is probably one of the best Hyundai interiors.
It is, because that's the thing. It doesn't look like any other Hyundai inside that I know of. I mean, I don't think, for me, if you consider the Genesis Hyundai luxury brand, something like the GV70, GV80 SUVs, I don't think it's quite on that level of luxury, but it is still premium. Yeah,
it does. It's got a really good feel, and all the materials are really nice. There's nothing snappy or scratchy. I really like it, and it's, and that back seat, there's so much room. We talked about the long wheelbase. It's all there.
It's a crazy amount of room out there. More than some mid-sized SUVs, I reckon.
Properly comfortable. These seats are great. Yeah, it's just a really nice place to be.
Even some Mercedes-Benz touches.
Yes, the dual screen.
Displays.
Dual screens
I
are
don't
great.
mind that.
Yep.
I mean, if you're going to rip something off Mercedes, make it a good thing.
But also do it right. Don't do it dodgy. Like some brands will rip something off and they'll get it wrong, but this is getting it right.
I love the chunky transmission as well. And unlike a Mercedes, I haven't put that into neutral yet. So that's a bonus.
Or a Tesla. Can I have a go?
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, you've had it. I want to drive it.
Yeah, all right. Come on then.
Thanks, Dad.
Right, Pete, so we're in the most powerful Ioniq 5, an all-wheel drive rather than rear-wheel drive. What are you thinking of performance so far?
Oh, it's got some grunt, hasn't it? Like, this thing really kicks off. So when I first drove it, it was in eco mode, and I thought, oh, well, this is a bit blur. But then I switched it up to normal, and there's an instant kind of, you know, the throttle response.
Please
really...
tell me you tried sport mode.
Just look, I'm telling the story here.
Get on with it.
I'm telling the story here. And then I kicked it into sport, and like, it's just, the performance is fantastic. It's just got so much instant, you know, zero lag torque. It just goes. Like, it just feels really nice. The steering wheel's good. I don't like the look of it. I don't like these 2-spoke wheels. I'm just not a fan. But yeah, like, everything's where it should be. You don't need a YouTube video to open the glove box. It's an easy car to just get in and own. Not just get in and drive, but get in and own, because it just feels like a normal car, and I really like that, and I think that's really good. Now, you're not a fan of the ride, are you?
Well, look, I just feel, look, at low speed, particularly, it's kind of where the car feels a touch heavy. Look, it's a minor thing, and I found the ride could be a bit lumpy at times and never really smoothed out.
Yeah, I think on reflection that it's quite livable, but I think it's worth people knowing that it's can be a bit lumpy. But that's really a function of it is very heavy.
I agree. I could definitely live with the ride, particularly because there's so many other appealing aspects of the driving experience. Yes. And you're right. You know, the acceleration, it's really satisfying.
It's
even
wild.
If you're in the normal mode, but yeah, you go to do an overtake with that sport mode, and really. And that's the thing. You know, with this car, it's expensive for a Hyundai. Yeah. But the performance you're getting is of cars that are much more expensive, and you know, it's almost as fast as a Jaguar I-Pace, and that starts at 130,000, you know, and they're similar in size.
And it's funny you mention the I-Pace, because I think it feels a lot like the I-Pace.
It does,
which again is impressive for you know,
refinement.
Refinement. It's not far off the price. It's certainly a great thing to look at. You know, the seats are fantastically comfortable.
Oh yeah.
Lots of adjustment.
Yeah, all electric, and you know, and that's all standard.
Yep, and they've got that wacky mode for when you're
the
charging
full recline.
The full recline for when you're charging it, which is kind of cool. So, you know, Hyundai's helping solve part of the problem of what do you do when it's charging, because, you know, we know it takes a while. We can't get away from that. But I think the engineers have done a pretty good job of taming the weight. The potential that I feel in this, as much as that it's a great thing out of the box, you know, the N versions are going to be great, but you know, you just know with Hyundais there's always little changes and always improvements as they go. So to get a car this good out of the box, feeling this good, I mean, it's a big change from the old Ioniq, which was a very meek and mild car, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a bit ho hum, wasn't it?
Yeah,
it was, and in fact, the best model in that Ioniq range was the cheapest model, just the regular hybrid. So it was kind of like the more money you spent, the worse car that you got. But have you the regen braking? What about your thoughts on that?
Yep, I like
cycling through the paddles.
I like the paddles a lot, and I think I usually drive electric cars on full regen. Because I really like the one pedal operation that you get out of that, and I think this is quite well judged. You do, we talked about this the other day, it does pull up short compared to some other ones when it's in full regen, so it's actually, the braking is a lot more aggressive. Not throw yourself through the windscreen, like I've just lifted off then and neither of us have lost our lunch. But it's just a bit more aggressive, and so it took a little more to get used to how effectively it brakes.
Yeah, because you could find yourself, I've stopped about 50 yards short of a traffic light, so you sort of re-accelerate this. It could be a touch embarrassing.
It's a little embarrassing, yeah.
Yes, but I like mixing between the one pedal.
Yep.
In particularly, stop-start urban driving, but out on the country road, I quite enjoyed level 2,
yes,
which kind of just gives you a bit more of that natural coasting, But you can still, you still don't really have to touch the brake pedal.
No.
But the thing, that brake pedal's actually got a quite decent feel, I think, for an EV.
That's something that's really struck me about this, the way that you don't, like in the old Ioniqs, and to a certain extent in the Kona, you do feel that transition between regen braking and actual disc braking, whereas this, it's a lot cleaner, it's a lot more subtle, the shift. It's not something that in those other cars to worry about, it just, to the newcomer, to the format, it just feels a bit funny, but...
Look, it's, 12 years or something like that since I last drove a hydrogen car, the Honda Clarity, and I did enjoy that, so I'm really curious to see what this Nexo is like.
Oh, well, let's go and have a look at the Nexo.
All right.
Let's find out what's inside, what makes it tick, almost literally, and then I suppose I'll have to let you drive that, won't I?
Yeah, I think it's only fair.
Now, I've got an advantage over you with this car because I had it for a few days in the way you had the Ioniq for a few days. So I'm very keen to hear your thoughts.
Well, I will give you my thoughts.
Well, I think I'd get them whether I asked or not.
Yeah. But first, I want to know a bit more about how this car works, because as we've alluded to earlier, it does things a little bit different about how it generates its electricity.
Right. So I'll give you a little history lesson. Before this car, there was a hydrogen fuel cell based on the much loved iX35. And come on, it was good. It was nice. I liked it.
Yeah.
And
let's move on.
Australians bought a lot of them. Anyway, so that was the first generation. It was a compromise in the sense that it wasn't built to be a fuel cell electric vehicle, so it only had 2 tanks because the torsion bars didn't allow, all the things to go where they wanted to, and it was a rolling lab essentially. And so Hyundai had 25 of them running around the streets of Paris as taxis, and I managed to get a cadger ride in one a few years ago. Now this is the second generation, but this is. So Hyundai say it's from the ground up a fuel cell electric vehicle. So it's packaged in a way that's not unfamiliar to us, and I'll explain that in a sec. But it now has 3 tanks, which means it can fit more hydrogen. So 156 litres. You compress hydrogen down quite a lot. So there's these tanks in the back which are literally that thick, so almost 2 inches.
You can see it on a diagram.
You can see it on, that's
3
right.
of them over the rear axle.
Yep. And the tanks are this thick. They're 3 layers of carbon fibre and then a plastic liner. We've done an interview with Scott Naga, who tells us how they test the strength of those. So you've got 3 tanks in the back. Over the top of those is a small battery. And then in the front there is what's called the stack. So there's the fuel cell itself, which is the bit where the hydrogen flows through a membrane which produces electricity, water and heat. So the exhaust pipes actually expel water.
Which is pretty cool.
That is kind of cool.
And that's what the Honda Clarity did. Yeah.
Yes. Which means it's very clean, of course, as long as the hydrogen has come from a green source. So it is basically an electric car. It's just that instead of the batteries being the power storage, the electricity is stored in hydrogen. So to get hydrogen, the best way to do it is electrolysis. So you use a green source of energy like wind, thermal, solar to separate the hydrogen from the narrow road ahead, to separate the hydrogen from the oxygen. So you get hydrogen as a gas and oxygen is obviously released. It goes into the car, and then it's the process of the fuel cell actually reverses that. So that's kind of how a fuel cell works.
It's not straightforward, is it?
It's not super straightforward, but it's there actually are fewer moving parts because you don't have the suck, push, bang, blow of an internal combustion engine. So it's quite a simple process, really.
I guess relative
in that
to
sense.
a BEV.
Yeah, in relative to, yeah.
Like
so,
the Ioniq
yeah,
5.
Yeah. So that's how it works. As a car, it actually feels a lot like the Tucson is crossed with the Santa Fe. So it's got the flying bridge of the Santa Fe, And in fact, the Nexo, because it's older than the Santa Fe, but we've only just got it. This is the first Hyundai to have this flying bridge, and it's not scared of a button, is it?
It's I believe it's what you would call a plethora of buttons. It's overwhelming.
This is Porsche levels of buttons.
Yeah, not quite the same quality.
You don't like the quality in this. Look,
yeah, it's a bit 1990s.
You think? Yeah, look.
I mean, call me harsh, but
I don't know. Yes and no. I mean, it's a low volume car, so I guess that plays into it somewhat. And because it doesn't look like any other Hyundai, it seems like most of the bits are bespoke to it. Yeah, anyway, this one's fully loaded. It's got heated seats, cooled seats, climate control. It's got, everything that you get in. It just feels like a family SUV. And that's one of the things I quite like about it.
Well, look, if we consider how it drives, I'm enjoying it very much. I mean, it's got that instant linear response to throttle inputs that we love of electric vehicles.
Yeah.
If I just put my, it's a bit of a burst of acceleration, but it's got nothing on the Ioniq.
So this is a 120 kilowatt motor. It's the same motor as the Kona, same battery as the old Ioniq hybrid. So it does share some parts with other cars, but I mean, I guess you'd expect that to keep the cost down, but it hasn't. But again, low volume.
But the ride quality.
The ride's really good, isn't it?
I was quibbling over the Ioniq 5, but this is a really lovely ride.
It's very comfortable.
It's supple. It just really soaks up the bumps, and the steering. Like the Ioniq is. I actually quite like it. It's light. It's quite effortless. So. Yeah, lots to like about Nexo.
Yeah, and look, there's lots of room in the back. There's a good sized boot. You do miss out on a spare tyre because there's a battery there and a hydrogen tank.
Well, it wouldn't be the only SUV to
true.
do that. So,
exactly.
Regardless of fuel power.
Yeah, that's right. It's fully loaded, this car, but you've got to be a government to buy it, basically, because of the limitations of hydrogen. So the ACT government's got a whole bunch of them. The Queensland government's putting its toe in the water. I think we both. I was surprised by this being good. I was expecting I wasn't expecting to be so well resolved, to handle so well, and to be as just kind of accomplished. And it's quiet, and it feels like an electric car.
Yeah.
How good's that?
Yeah.
All right.
Let's.
We should get out and wrap it up.
Yeah, let's do it, and let's think about where we feel about these two cars in the overall scheme of things.
So the Ioniq 5, the Nexo. What have we learnt, Jez?
Well, I think we've learned that if I were to go from Sydney to Canberra, this is the car I would like. The Nexo, it's got that beautiful, supple ride, and of course it's got the range that can get you there and back without having to refuel.
Yep.
Unlike the Ioniq 5, but the Ioniq, of course, has got some brilliant EV traits that we love.
It's got the thump in the back, hasn't it? Like when you gun this thing, you are
brilliant.
You are at the horizon. It's also got one of the things I really love about EVs, and that's the one pedal operation. You pull the paddle into full regen and you don't have to touch the brakes. And I really like that in stop-start traffic. It sounds weird, but it's just a little thing. It's just that little bit less fatiguing. Whereas the Nexo, the battery's not big enough for that. There isn't got the stuff behind it to make that happen. But yeah, absolutely right. The ride is beautiful. It's very comfortable, and it's kind of cool to be driving such a normal looking car with such a absolutely futuristic drivetrain.
Yeah, but ultimately not as cool as the Ioniq 5. There's just something about this car, the design and the way it drives, it does feel pretty special. So yes, it's an expensive Hyundai, but it's a really good one. And well, next time that we do a vote on a hydrogen car, electric car, maybe you can actually buy that hydrogen car. So maybe 2035, you can come and watch that video.
All right, I'll see you then.
Cut!
Cut. All right, we're going to.
Once more with feeling.
Yeah. You just imagine him calling us in 2 days now. I need you to do that again. Good.
This is what he said. Oh, I'm not sure that's recorded.
Short and sweet.